Welcome to Callous Coder. Today we will refurbish a refurbished modern retro console, the 2001 GameCube. Motherfucker! So the GameCube from 2001. I never owned one, but my best friend who used to live here when he worked with me, he had one. And it got a lot of flack for being under-spec'd and the titles being childish compared to the competition, the PS2 and the Xbox 360 at the time. But actually it's a very decent console. And the great thing is, it's very easily and cheaply moddable with a Pi Pico. Now initially I wanted to use this tiny RP20 because, well, it's tiny, it's smaller to stick somewhere in the GameCube. But I had a problem installing the whole tool chain to build for ARM on my Mac. And I was like, I can't be bothered to figure it out after about 45 minutes. Because I had to remap some pins, especially for the LED that's on a different pin. So I figured, let's use a Pi Pico because I have a lot of them anyways. And I noticed that you have ample space to stick it somewhere in the GameCube anyways, because that thing is small but still has a lot of empty space. So maybe in the future I will mod the code to actually work properly on this one, but for now we use the Pi Pico. So let's have a look at the refurbished GameCube that I bought for 69 euros. So let's jump in and have some fun. So I bought this refurbished GameCube from Goohoo, which is a Dutch reseller of Nintendo and other old game retro stuff. And yeah, the packing, okay, right. Well, there is at least bubble wrap in there, and there is the GameCube, nicely wrapped in retro bubble wrap. And it sort of looks okay. There's a bit of a scratch there, which we will get rid of. And the plastic is a bit white, so it's a bit dried out. So yeah, it's not really that refurbished, but yeah, it does look good. Now it didn't come with the original controller, so I bought a reissue controller. Sort of feels nice, it's not special. And they put in a new power adapter, and this is Goohoo, the guys that refurbish it. Meticulously cleaned and checked and make sure that it works. Well, it does work, but I will actually clean it with Maddox. Maddox is a vinyl restoring agent used for dashboards. You can get it online, and it actually reinvigorates the plastics by getting some oils in there. And everybody is better when it's looped up with oil, right? So let's rub the oil all over its gorgeous black body. Now in the slots where the fan is, there was still a lot of dust, so I take some IPA and some cotton swabs and clean them out. You shouldn't actually do that in your ears, although this looks like it came out of my ears. Blah. Yeah, this scratch is bothering me a little, so a bit of black oil paint. This is even too much, and we just pat it in. The trick is to actually pat it. So it will actually get into that little scratch, and then you feather it out on the edges. And that little oily spot that will dry in, and when we do a second coat of Maddox over it, you won't even see that anymore. So this looks nice. Let's check if it actually works. This is Mortal Kombat that I bought for it. Yeah, I need a memory card. Don't have that yet. It's in the mail. So let's play this and see you in about 4 hours.
It has been 2 hours of continuous karate, kung fu, and other martial arts. Now let's jump in to other room and put in PicoBoot mod chip. Hi. Let's go.
I'm sure the woke nutters took offense. Well done, always good. Now let's get my special screwdriver and open it up. Oh my god. My shaft is too short. My shaft isn't engaging in the right spot. Yeah, it is too small. I need to order a bigger one. Next day, the big one arrived. I have a bigger shaft now and it engages in the right G-spot to undo those special screws that Nintendo likes to put in and everything. Alright, so it actually looks nice and clean inside. Look at that. They actually polished it on the inside. Except for the fan, there is some gunk on there. We'll clean that out just because we're here. Doesn't improve anything in the performance. Let's take this off because we need to disassemble it to get all the way down to the components. Let's take out these screws. And this is where Goo really let me down. I cannot disengage this screw. It's so stuck, and I don't want to null the head, although I'm already stripping it. And the other ones did come out easily. So what is on there? What is going on there? Well, let's first do the other ones and then figure it out. That's usually how I progress. If I'm stuck, I do something else and let my mind work on the solution. So the solution is to get my pliers and actually turn this thing loose, because I cannot put a drill on it with all the little metal shards flying into the delicate circuitry. So I spend around 5 minutes getting this thing loose, and look at that, it's completely crooked. Goo-hoo, you absolute idiots. You don't put a warped screw into a machine. I'm not going to put this one back. I'm not sure how to fasten it now, but this is not going back. Alright, now let's undo the other 18 screws or something like that. But first get rid of this fan, and here's my smallest fan and my only fan. But yeah, my fan is a bit dirty. I like dirty fans. They always do the nicest things for me. But let's clean the dirty fan, get in those slots and wiggle it around with some IPA. And look at that, how brown it is that came off. That is insane. Yeah, and now we need to undo the other 15 or so screws. Nintendo, you screwed me over. Why so many screws? 6 or 8 would have done. But yeah, there's a lot. I put some plastic over their lens because I noticed I was touching the lens all the time, and you don't want fatty fingerprints on the lens. And I keep screwing and screwing and screwing until I finally was done. And then you can lift off the whole top assembly, which is really nicely done, Nintendo. I am impressed with this. And now we take off the heatsink, because we need to get close to some components that are underneath the heatsink. Now the thing is, this heatsink is stuck by a vacuum. There are these pads on there, these silicone pads, and they have a little plastic on there, and it looks as though it's sticky, but nothing sticks to silicone as only silicone does. But it's the vacuum that holds this, so I try to wiggle it just a little to break the vacuum seal. But I cannot move it even the slightest. So I need some leverage. Now you can apply some leverage with a screwdriver, but only on those places where the screws are actually in, and make sure that you not put your screwdriver on other components. I put it here on the edge of the case and just a tiny flick, and it broke the vacuum seal, and there you go. And even my pads are in one piece. Now let us first prepare the Pi Pico. Hold the boot cell, then plug it in, and you will see it get mounted to your PC. As soon as it's mounted, you can actually go there to the RPI RP2 and copy your Pi Pico boot.uf2 file right onto it. And just wait, and it will unmount automatically. As soon as that's done, you continue with your mod. So this is the schematic. We need to run 5 wires, and GP6 and 7 are actually combined. This is because he overclocks the circuitry and he reduces the current that runs through those pins, and hence 2 pins set to 4 milliamps still generates 8 milliamps. So let's solder this. Here I already put the 2 wires on there on the IPL chip, and this is the GPIO 5 for the clock signal, the ground that I just combined with a blob of solder because you need to combine them too. And then here the VCC, or the VCs as I like to call them. There we go. It always looks a bit more nasty under the microscope than under your real eyes. And then I put some Kapton tape to hold those cables down so that they don't move. And since we cannot get to them anymore, I make sure by measuring every pin that we don't have any shorts, that everything is working. So as soon as I pulled the heatsink on, we know that at least the wiring is correct. Which was good because I made a typo with the IPL.dol. I forgot the dot and it didn't boot, so I knew it had to be the SD configuration. Now we put back the heatsink, and the thing is, you always need to do this just like with a car wheel in a cross pattern. Because if you do not, you could actually not contact everything in the same amount of pressure. And you don't want that, you want equal pressure. And you don't fasten them completely the first time. You first put them in a cross pattern and then you tighten them in a cross pattern. And that way you know that you have all the forces equally distributed on those ICs. Which is very important. And the same thing with your car wheel. Yeah, this slides in nicely and we have the cables. I wrangle the cables around so that they're not pinched. We have some metal there, so you don't want your wires to actually get pinched and stripped off. And then I first put in the first 3 screws, and then I will put in this fan again, my small but only fan that is now clean. And I stick it to that fan. There's actually a lot of space there. And I use some double-sided sticky tape after I wrangled the wires nicely behind the PCB as well. So it's a nice hidden solution. There we go, yeah. And I made sure that my connector is up so that if there is a new version of IPL boot, I can just stick my cable in there and upload the new IPL boot. So I made sure that no wires are pinching, and look at that, it's nice and compact. And now let's screw the rest of the screws in, all 15 of them. Thanks Nintendo, you gave me RSI. Yeah, and this is a bit of an issue, I don't have a screw that fits. So for now I just stick some Kapton tape on there, and when I find a screw that actually fits, I will screw it in there, but it's not moving, so I'm fine with it. Now my big shaft gets into that tiny hole and puts in those unique Nintendo screws. You can't stop me from screwing you over, Nintendo, honestly. And there we are, and look at how much it shines. It's almost as though it's new. And that is what I like about refurbishing. But not as much as actually playing the games. Which brings us to the next step, which is creating the SD card. Now in order to create the SD card you need a SD card to memory converter, or use a serial to SD card, which only works in this version, the DOL 001. In my case I bought SD card for that slot, as the SD to memory card, and I first start by formatting the memory card, and you need to format it in FAT32. So I give it the name GameCube so I know what it is, and it is MS FAT, which results into FAT32 on bigger disks on macOS. So if you run it on Windows, make sure to format it on FAT32. Right, so it's formatted. Let's create a folder called Games, where we can copy in all our backed up games. Make sure you own the games. Piracy is bad. Yeah, I've got a bit of a bronchitis after surgery. And then we downloaded the latest Swiss, and we go into the Swiss folder, then the DOL folder, and we copy the Swiss and the version number DOL, and we put it in the root of that SD card and rename it to IPL.dol, Mr. Duchess. I actually removed the DOL here, and initially it didn't work. And I knew that my wiring was correct, so I had a look at the SD card and saw the dot was missing. And then I powered it on, and there it goes, it boots straight into Swiss. And let's select a game that I actually own, Mario Kart, which I really love. It's such a cool game. And you see how it works. It actually patches the files in runtime when you start them. And then it loads that patched DOL file. And there we have Nintendo. This is such a fun game. Brings back memories.
So there you have it. You buy yourself a 50 to 70 euro GameCube. You polish it up nicely. You put in a Pi Pico for $6. And you get yourself an SD to memory card. Or you use the Serial 2 SD card. Which you can put into bottom of the DL001. Which I actually have. The DOL 100 doesn't have that. So you always need that memory card. Now they say that the memory card is a bit slower at, I believe, 3.2 megabits. And the one in the bottom is 3.8 megabits. Don't hold myself, I read something like that. But I don't see any dropped frames in the cutscenes videos. It just streams perfectly. So yeah, whatever you want. So for about $100, you have yourself a great 2001 retro game console, which also makes a nice Christmas gift, right? You buy a cheap used GameCube, you polish it up nicely, you put in a Pi Pico, you get yourself the SD to memory card, you put all the games on there that your friend backed up and owns, because piracy is bad. And then you have a nice retro Christmas. And with the world being on the verge of World War III, with Israel, America, Palestine, Ukraine, Russia, China, all those weird woke nutters with their totalitarian idea sets, I think it's great to withdraw yourself from all those imbeciles of the world and just be in your own little living room, living the life of the early 2000s, when things were still borderline normal. So I hope you learned something and see you in the next one.